Okay. Well, you've got quite some press this week in the German news, actually. You were mentioned, well, the Quirkyalone movement was mentioned in The Focus, which is a really big German news magazine, on the ZDF website, which is a big TV channel in Germany. And I guess it's the season right now, this week, Valentine's week. I think it's the season for Quirkyalones, because as everybody know, on February 14th, it's Quirkyalone Day. And this is the founder of the Quirkyalone movement. And when I read, when I saw it mentioned in the German news, I thought, I know this lady. So I finally have a reason to talk with you. So can you tell us a little bit about what does Quirkyalone mean and what is the Quirkyalone movement about?
So Quirkyalone is a word that I invented back in the year 2000. So it's existed in the world now for 15 years.
15 years, wow. It's successful, it's still around.
It's growing. It never stops growing because people really identify more and more with being Quirkyalone.
Yeah.
And that is someone who maybe a romantic, maybe wants to be in a relationship, but also really can enjoy being single and prefers to be single rather than settle for a relationship that is less than what that person really wants. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's more about finding happiness within yourself than it is about being single or in a relationship, because there's also being quirky together, which is like, how do you be quirky alone with someone else? So it's philosophically really about finding fullness within yourself and bringing that fullness to life as a single person or to a relationship. And you know, when I came up with this idea, it was really edgy and weird, and it took me years to find a publisher for my book because people thought like Quirkyalone was like weirdo living in the woods. Like that person was Ted Kaczynski or Emily Dickinson or just someone very strange.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, more and more people get it. Like certain people just hear the word Quirkyalone and they're like, yes, that's me. Because like it or not, there still is this feeling that if you're not in a relationship, there's something wrong with you. Absolutely. So it really is a way to push back against that feeling.
Yeah. And I think we're going to make so many people happy today when they find out, I'm just quirky alone. I'm not just single. I'm quirky.
Exactly. Yeah, it's more of a question of your stance in the world and who you are, as opposed to, oh, I just didn't find my partner, or I'm a loser, or single always has this sense of trying to get with someone else.
Yeah, and that's still what society teaches us, that we're only complete with a partner in as one half of a couple. You know, so, and it seems like you are giving people permission with that Quirkyalone movement to be single and happy and to be your own person, because you have to love yourself first before you can, you know, be in a really happy, healthy relationship, and you have to accept yourself. And I think this really fits into the whole personal self and spiritual development at the moment that people are going through. And
absolutely. I mean, because if you don't have that positive relationship with yourself and you haven't cultivated a self-acceptance, then you get in a relationship with someone else and it's also never enough. And you don't feel loved enough. And I'm not pointing the finger at anyone else. I've lived this too, you know, and you come back to, ultimately it is about cultivating this fuller relationship with yourself and then being in a better position for everything.
And how did you experience that you were in wrong relationships, or how did you come up with the idea? How did it get started?
Well, originally Quirkyalone was, in the book I talk about there being born again Quirkyalones and womb Quirkyalones, and a womb Quirkyalone comes out of the womb Quirkyalone. Like you were just always that person who was sort of okay being single. And that was me. Like when I was 13, like I was not having a lot of boyfriends. When I was 17, I was not having a lot of boyfriends. I started dating a lot in college, but I was always kind of single. So for me, it was more about really accepting who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other people who are the born again Quirkyalones. And that comes to them as a revelation, you know, after a divorce, after giving themselves away another time. And I'm doing this thing now where I'm helping women marry themselves, which is in a way like really committing to loving yourself fully.
Yeah.
And not to be celibate for the rest of your life, but really as that like vow to yourself of whatever your commitments are for you.
Yeah. Well, I once got engaged to myself, but you are taking it a step further.
Well, you have to get engaged before you get married.
True.
There actually are steps, yeah.
And actually, it was sort of a Quirkyalone kind of thing because it was on Valentine's Day. It was with a bunch of girlfriends. We just didn't know about the Quirkyalone movement back then yet.
Yeah. And I think like I'm just such a sensitive person. I feel things really deeply myself. So that's why like I needed Quirky. And then like, all these other people needed it too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it started out in, I don't know where you were living back then, but you started like a group in your city and then it started spreading, or how did that go?
It began with me noticing things in my own life and with my friends. Like I noticed that my friends also were single a lot of the time back then. I was in my 20s then, and I went to a New Year's Eve party one night and I was very obsessed with getting a midnight kiss.
Yeah.
And I was like in this phase of my life where it's like, you have to kiss someone on New Year's Eve. And it didn't happen. And then I noticed that nobody else had a midnight kiss. So that was sort of one of the moments of epiphany of like, oh, this is not so unique.
Yeah.
And then what happened was I wrote an essay that was in my own magazine called To-Do List. And another magazine reprinted it called At-Me Reader, which is a magazine of the best of the alternative press in the United States. So then from there, it really went viral and people were taking the quiz online, are you a Quirkyalone? And the media was writing about it. So it was just like no ambition really other than like, this is so powerful for me and I want to see if some other people identify with it.
Yeah. And your book even got published in Germany, I saw. So all the German viewers will be happy about that.
Totally. And I think that Germany is a country that is definitely ready to go full force with Quirkyalone. I mean, I think it's already happening.
Yeah, and because in Germany, well, I just moved back to Germany after 17 years abroad, but I still get the sense about the Germans, we don't like to be normal. You know, we actually have a term, nobody wants to be Stino. In German it's called Stino, which stands for stink normal. Like being stink normal is even worse than being normal. So I think the quirky really fits with the Germans because I think we just like to be just a little bit different. Okay, so you started with the book. That's what started the whole thing, and then groups started. And how has the whole thing evolved over the years? Because you are doing, you're coaching people now, you are doing tango adventures, now you marry people to themselves. So what's the latest?
So it's always changing. I mean, this has been 15 years, so it's like always evolving as I evolve and from what people want, you know, it's like a kind of an ongoing collaboration. So right now, the big things that are happening is that I've been talking a lot about this topic of single shame, which is sort of inherent in Quirkyalone, is like, if they've been single for a long time. And I noticed for myself in my own life that this would really stop me from being open with people, even when I was dating them, and would prevent like actually having a relationship. So in my coaching, that's been a big focus, is working with women and men who like have this feeling that is even hard to talk to therapists about because it's not something that has really been identified in the world. And I'm talking about it and people are resonating with that. And then the other piece is that I personally have gone through a big change in my life about 5 years ago where I was working in Silicon Valley after all this, and I kind of like set my mind at making more money and being normal, let's say. Like I tried to be normal and it didn't really work out.
You got a little bit off track.
I got a little bit off track, yeah. And I'm writing a book about that, which is in progress, and it's called Wet. So it's about how I discovered myself through my body. Like I had been really in my head for a long time because I'm a very intellectual person. And that was not going very well for me, especially in San Francisco that's like so techie and business and strategy. So I went to Brazil and I basically spent 14 months wandering by myself through South America. And during that time I discovered tango, which turned out to be like a huge revelation for me about relationship, even like pleasure and relationship and how to connect to yourself deeply and to another, and really connect in both ways. So basically now I'm in Buenos Aires at this moment, and I have this life where I live part-time in Buenos Aires, and I teach Quirkyalone women about tango as a dance and also as a metaphor for how they can learn about themselves through their posture. Even like tango is this big posture of self-respect that you actually change your body through learning the dance. And for me, like I've learned so much about my own patterns and who I have been and who I want to be through adjusting how I show up in this dance of two people that are like in an embrace. Tango is a dance of a hug. So all these quirky adventures that I do with people now, which is like showing them tango, helping them marry themselves, and then, you know, all kinds of Quirkyalone and Quirky Together coaching, like how do I be in a Quirky Together relationship. And
do you have mainly women customers or men as well? How is that? Do men come to you as well?
Men do come to me for sure, and it's always been about 15% men.
Okay.
So it's mostly women, and I could easily say that I'm just for women because I am mostly for women, and I'm reading a lot about female sexuality now, and I'm really, really interested in that. But I never want to leave the men out because I know the Quirkyalone men basically need others to represent their point of view. And that is also a real dilemma, to be a Quirkyalone man and to be thought of like, oh, you're just a commitment phobe, or, you know, they also get the feeling that there's something wrong with them. So Quirkyalone men are awesome. Basically, they're really cool guys. So
do they come to the tango adventure as well? Because the women need dancing partners, no?
They should come. So far, it's been for women, and I've said that it is for women because women are the ones who have expressed interest. But if a man wants to come, I wouldn't turn him away. I would talk to him, and, you know, it would be cool to have a guy for sure.
Yeah, cool, super cool. And how do you, when you coach people one-on-one, how do you help them let go of this single shame that you mentioned? And how do you make them ready for a new relationship again, or just for dating, going out there again?
I mean, in some way, it's really very simple. It's about just having a space to talk about that feeling, because the thing with shame is that it gets so big, like this crazy mushroom cloud, until you actually have the chance to really speak about it with someone. So basically, I just create this very safe, judgment-free zone where I'm very curious. I mean, I'm just very naturally curious as a person, and I understand what it's like. I had to go through this myself of learning how to talk about it with someone. And I mean, a lot of my work is about shame, ultimately. I think like the whole Brene Brown talks shame, and in some way my focus is shame in being single and in sex is really like my work helps people to move through both of those things, to own their power and their sensuality as a woman, and to own their whole story as a single person. So it really is just merely creating the space to do that in a safe place, that then it gets very creative. Like I had one client who decided she would write a resume of all of her different relationships that were romantic and non-romantic. Like, this is actually what I know about relationship and all that I bring, and just being very creative about like who she is and seeing herself in a different way. So, you know, it's just sort of like actually speaking about it.
Yeah, and really having this judgment-free zone, because out there in the world, and especially in this week, we just get bombarded with judgment, or it triggers self-judgment in us when we see all these Valentine promotions and everything. And even, it's something that we've been brought up with. I mean, if you think of all the fairy tales, the princess needs to get rescued by the prince, and all the Disney fairy tales, Disney movies, and even like the singles heroes like Bridget Jones, Carrie Bradshaw, they ended up with Mark Darcy and with Mr.
Right.
Big.
Right.
So I actually have a friend, she just wrote a book, which is shopping to publishers now, and it's about a single woman. And the publishers but there's no happy end. There's no traditional happy end, Boy does not get girl. And they all ask her to change the ending. And she's like, no, I'm not going to support this concept any longer. Boy does not get girl, because girl is happy with herself. She's happy with who she's becoming. And and being authentically herself. So it is still a problem out there. So we need the Quirkyalone movement to spread.
Absolutely. It's so, everyone is so attached to that as the happy ending, and just because your happy ending is that you're more comfortable in yourself, that doesn't mean that you never find your guy, but that can also be the ending. And it's just such a trap, because it makes us all feel so lesser if we don't have that particular thing happening in our lives right now. And what I realize now is Valentine's Day, it doesn't just make single people feel bad. It's also like people who are in relationships. I'm like, am I really with the right person? Or, is our day good enough? Or, just all of those standards just really push down on our energy. So, when I started Quirkyalone Day back in 2003, like, I didn't personally care about Valentine's Day. Like, it didn't actually, it was just like, whatever, I'm living my life, I'm doing my thing. And I recognize intellectually that for other people, this is a real problem. So let's create Quirkyalone Day, And then over the year, I have felt the pain. I have people write me about the pain they feel, like I need to just run home and cry and hide on February 14th, or I felt that myself too. But it's just total bullshit. I mean, like, why allow this external thing as a day to really affect how we feel about ourselves, even for a whole month, let's say. So,
and it just really plays into the whole thing, like that people... We're always like, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when I'm successful. I'll be happy when I found Mr. Right, and, But why not be happy now, And I think it's really, we're successful if we don't get triggered or put down by all this Valentine's crap anymore.
Absolutely, totally. That is success, to just live your life and feel engaged and full, and put your energy out there, as opposed to like and I mean, I really believe that if you have that feeling of emptiness and lack when you're single, it's quite likely you'll find it when you find your Mr. Prince too. So absolutely there is no like, I'm gonna meet that guy and it's all gonna be perfect.
Exactly. So what if you meet that guy tomorrow? What's going to happen to the Quirkyalone business or movement?
Nothing changes. Everyone always asks that. But I mean, I had to go through that a lot. When I ran away to Brazil, in part, it was because I was running away from Quirkyalone. And in some way, I was really tired of being called the happy single girl, because I felt very limited to that. And I got very bitter. And I was like, what did I do? I ruined my life. I mean, I really went on a big tear with that in my mind. And I realized, like, that's not true. I get to define it. It's just like everything else. It's about what I say it means. And there is something deep here. When I married myself, actually, one of my vows was that I never make my work more important than me. Like, I'm not going to sacrifice who I am for my work or for anyone else. So because I'm really ambitious and I'm kind of a workaholic, that's an important vow for me in my self-marriage, because I have to keep remembering, like, I have to fill myself up. And so, of course, like, I have boyfriends, or like, I have dreams of great connection, and I have relationships, and I'm quirky together when I'm in a relationship. So it's just this. And
what is quirky together? That's the evolution of Quirkyalone.
It's the evolution of Quirkyalone, but it doesn't mean Quirkyalone goes away. Like, you're still Quirkyalone when you are quirky together. But basically, quirky together is being very authentic, learning how to be really yourself in a relationship, bringing your full self, not shaving away parts of who you are for the sake of a stable relationship, and, you know, making it up for how it works for those people. Or, I mean, you could be quirky together and polyamorous too. Like, I mean, it's very open. But the core tenets, I think, are authenticity, vulnerability. Being like, really the path to intimacy is to be vulnerable and to open up and share what is sometimes difficult to share. Like the shame thing, like you have to sort of share what's difficult to share to really connect. And then freedom and openness to basically create a life that is like fully turned on, and where you keep the best parts of being single, basically, too, while like also having partnership and commitment.
Yeah. So two authentic individuals create an authentic relationship together.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do on Quirkyalone Day this year?
I think I'm going to dance tango.
Yeah. I mean, you are in Argentina.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I mean, it's going to be kind of a normal day for me. I was trying to get a massage, actually, but de los enamorados. So I was pushed out by Valentine's Day, so I'll just get my massage later. But I'm just going to take it easy, basically, and like have a restful, relaxing day and dance and enjoy.
And I guess every day of the year is a Quirkyalone Day for you, right?
It can be.
Great. So where can we send the people who are watching now and who until now thought they were single and now they suspect maybe I'm Quirkyalone? What is the next step for them? Where can we send them to?
The next step is to go to quirkyalone.net and to take the quiz, Are You a Quirkyalone? And you can get your score. And then you'll be part of my mailing list, so you'll learn about what's going on. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, you can send me a message. If you're interested in learning tango in Buenos Aires, you know, we actually have one spot left for the trip in March. So if that is for you, then write me a message. And if you want to marry yourself, then write me a message, because this is something I would love to help people do.
Great. And they can do that online with you, or they have to travel somewhere?
We work together by Skype, and then we actually figure out where the self-marriage will take place. So they could travel, or I can assist you in doing that where you live.
Wonderful.
You might want to take a honeymoon. I mean, there's lots of options.
Sorry, you might?
You might want to have a honeymoon that could involve travel, so there are really a lot of options.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, I was checking before our chat if there is a Quirkyalone chapter in Berlin already, and there isn't. So if you are watching Single and Quirkyalones, I just moved to Berlin, so just contact me and we figure something out. We start the Berlin capital of Quirkyalone in Europe movement.
I can't wait. I really want to come to Berlin sometime soon.
We'll fly you in. We'll fly you in when it's big enough.
Absolutely.
Great. Hey, Sasha, great that we could connect on such short notice. It was really wonderful to talk with you. And I hope we made many previously single people happy with our chat just now.
I hope so too. Thank you so much. This is awesome.
Thank you.